What's going on, guys? This is VinylicPuma, back with another Borderlands 2 countdown, and today I wanted to make a video talking about some of the best gun and weapon changes that are current as of Borderlands 2's Community Patch 4.1. Now before we start, this video is going to go over a number of different weapons that I think have been some of the most improved since the Community Patch's initial release. And this video will serve as an update to my last video that talked about some of the most improved weapons as of Community Patch 3.0. Now, a lot of those same weapons from that original list are still pretty good, but several things have changed, and I wanted to highlight some of those changes here because I think some of those changes are more substantial. As always, feel free to leave some of your favorite Community Patch buffs in the comments section below, but without further ado, let's go ahead and start with number 10, and that is going to be Gemstone Weapons. While not a change to a specific weapon, the improvements to Gemstone Weapons are a much welcomed change and make me sort of wonder why Gearbox themselves didn't implement them. Having a dedicated rarity in addition to some specific enhancements to other attributes like increased base damage, accuracy, and magazine size was really a great idea. Now, as you can see from some of these screenshot comparisons, the enhancements aren't always huge, but I would say that when it comes to base damage in particular, it is fairly substantial. It's also good that acquiring Gemstone Weapons has been expanded somewhat, as normally you would have had to have spent hours feeding Butt Stallion Iridium or killing Iron Gods in order to get some Gemstone Weapons. By making Gemstone Weapons guaranteed drops from Iron Gods, as well as allowing them to drop from the Ancient Dragons of Destruction, you should find that these are going to be much easier to obtain in larger quantities. Between the enhanced properties, the exclusive rarity tier, as well as how these are just much easier to acquire now, this is a great change, and it's a change that I never would have realized that I would have wanted. Number 9. The Tunguska. While it's no Norfleet, the Tunguska was always held back by its obnoxious self-damage. The only real viable way to use this weapon was to make sure you had the sham equipped, because otherwise, the Tunguska was capable of dealing so much damage that the second explosion would end up putting the player in fight for your life. That's why I think removing the self-damage from the Tunguska was one of the better changes that the Community Patch team made. While it's not necessarily new with 4.1, I have to admit that the lack of self-damage makes the Tunguska much easier, much less risky, and a whole lot more fun to use. Sure, I suppose it's still not quite as strong as the Norfleet is. However, given that the Tunguska is only inexplosive, you may find that it's a lot easier to farm for a version with ideal parts. Otherwise, the Tunguska's damage has been boosted by about 30%, and the weapon skin has been redone to give it a much more unique and striking appearance. So overall, the gun looks better and functions better than it ever did before, and if you're going to try Community Patch 4.1, you should definitely check out the Tunguska. Number 8. E-Tech Weapons. So, E-Tech weapons were pretty horrible before the Community Patch. A lot of these weapons either consumed way too much ammo, they had terrible critical hit bonus, or a total inability to crit. In fact, it was kind of sad to see regular purple weapons, which are supposed to be more common and worse than their E-Tech counterparts, ultimately outperform their E-Tech counterparts. Thankfully, the Community Patch as of 4.1 has rectified some of the issues with a lot of these weapons. In general, some of these weapons have had their critical hit penalties removed, greatly increasing their damage potential, and for the weapons that don't crit, like E-Tech splat guns, their damage has been increased significantly, making them far more powerful and viable than they were ever before. It's also worth pointing out that the ammo consumption has been reduced on some of the E-Techs as well. Snipers and splat guns are a lot stronger and make a lot more sense to use now, thanks to how you're not consuming 2 or more bullets every time you pull the trigger. And in the case of snipers specifically, this is extremely important, as this was the one thing that was holding them back in the regular vanilla game. While I think some of the improvements are a little suspect, as I've noticed some weird glitches with health bars while using E-Tech pistols, the changes overall are positive, and rather than simply walking past E-Tech rarity weapons like I used to, I'm at least going to try and pick them up and potentially even add them to my arsenal. Number 7. The Seeker. So it's no secret that the Seeker is a bad weapon. While it may work okay when going up against surveyors thanks to its homing rockets, the weapon itself really lacked the base damage and fire rate necessary to be able to deal enough DPS to make it a mainstay weapon in any build. After all, you needed 2 Fang and a bunch of fire rate boosting skills to get the rockets to fire fast enough, and even if you accomplished that, the Seeker's ammo consumption of 2 bullets per rocket constantly made sure that you were reloading all of the time. However, with even some of the earlier iterations of the community patch like 3.0, the Seeker has seen some improvements, which remain in 4.1. The community patch team has doubled the Seeker's fire rate and increased its base damage by 200%, which, if you ask me, is appropriate as the Seeker can't crit especially well due to how the rockets home in on an enemy's torso. The best buff, though, that I think that they made was the decreased ammo consumption, because before, you would get 10 or so shots with the Seeker before you had to reload, where now you get on average of 20. Ultimately, I think this weapon always had great potential, and thanks to a couple of tweaks, it's definitely worth using now. Number 6. The Elephant Gun. So, the Elephant Gun is one of those weapons that was kind of ambiguous. On the one hand, it had some truly horrendous qualities like no scope or iron sights and super low fire rates, which made accurate fire really difficult, and if you did end up missing, you were kinda screwed. At the same time, the Elephant Gun also had some great damage potential, and when combined with zero sniping and other gun-related skills, you could actually pull off some pretty decent damage. As of Community Patch 4.1, a lot of the major issues with the Elephant Gun have been fixed. While the fire rate is still fairly low, the Elephant Gun has been given the Jacob Sniper Barrel, which has its own pair of iron sights for easier aiming provided that you don't have a scope. Also, the Elephant Gun has been given a base damage boost of about 200%, making it even more powerful than it was before. And to give you some idea, I've been able to score around 100 million damage with the Elephant Gun on 0, which is a very impressive number and will make short work of most enemies. In fact, it's kinda crazy that you can deal this much damage this way. Overall, I really like this change, and if you're a fan of snipers, you really must try the Elephant Gun. Number 5. The Bearcat. Aside from making the weapon look a lot better, the Bearcat has received a major overhaul. While it still can't crit, the Bearcat has had its damage improved by about 50%, its fire rate has been increased by about 40%, and it also deals grenade damage, making it a perfect choice when playing with a character that can provide additional grenade damage bonus, like Axton. It's also worth pointing out that the Community Patch team has severely reduced the ammo consumption of all grenade-type assault rifles, and as you might expect, this improves the Bearcat and makes it a lot more useful. Going from an absurd 6 ammo consumption per shot to 2 makes the Bearcat a lot easier to use and provides the side benefit of improving the DPS of the gun even further. Honestly, it's great to see this, as the Bearcat was always a pretty cool pearlescent that just sucked because it consumed way too much ammo. But thanks to a little rebalancing, I think it's fair to say that the Bearcat is much more fun and actually viable to use now. So between the improved visual aesthetics to the gun itself, the improvements to grenade assault rifles across the board, and the specific improvements to the Bearcat's damage, fire rate, and potential to benefit from grenade damage bonus, I highly recommend you check this thing out, as it's much better now than it ever was. Number 4. The Patriot. Now, I have to admit that before the community patch was released, there was a fair amount of disagreement about whether the Patriot was bad or not. On the one hand, the Patriot sported high base damage, and provided you could score a successful critical, it would hit like a truck. At the same time, the Patriot is or was known for its horrendous accuracy, its low magazine size, and slow projectile speed, which definitely limited its viability at longer ranges. Thanks to the community patch, though, pretty much all of the penalties this weapon suffered from have been removed, and interestingly, its base damage has been increased even further, meaning that this thing is more accurate, has better projectile speed, and potentially even hits harder than it used to. So overall, I would say it's a significant improvement. In fact, it's probably one of Zero's best sniper rifles now, provided you pair it with Critical Ascension, as it seems to easily take down most mobs. While I couldn't say if it's as powerful as the Lyuda now, it's definitely a lot stronger and more practical to use now, and it may actually be worth farming Master Gi in order to get one of these in each element, where before you were mostly really just wasting your time. I will say that I do wish the community patch team redid the skin on this one, as I've never been a huge fan of the original's look, but as for how the weapon performs, it's significantly better than the original and is definitely recommended. Number 3. The Infection. Thanks to some of the more general changes that Community Patch 4.1 provides, like how damage over time has been increased in Ultimate Voltiger mode by over 150%, damage over time focused weapons like the Infection are considerably more effective. Not to mention that the weapon itself has received a fair number of specific buffs, as its base damage has been improved by 200%, and its own inherent damage over time effect has been buffed by an additional 30%. As you might guess, this makes the Infection a lot stronger and allows it to make short work of loaders, and even deals enough damage over time to easily deal with some of the weaker flesh-based enemies that would normally succumb to fire damage over time. When this all gets combined with Maya's Cloud Kill, it's fair to say that the vast majority of corrosive vulnerable enemies never really stood a chance. Otherwise, I don't think there's much else to the Infection, as the base damage improvements, as well as the improvements to damage over time for Ultimate Voltiger mode, have made the weapon a lot more useful. So if you're playing with the community patch, and you want to have fun taking guys out with damage over time, I highly recommend the Infection, as the work the community patch team have done has really made the weapon a lot better and more fun to use. Number 2. The Wanderlust. The Wanderlust is another one of those weapons that was absolutely god-awful in the non-community patch version of the game. It was extremely inaccurate by design. It usually only fired 1 or maybe 2 projectiles, meaning you were getting poor damage if you did manage to hit an enemy. And the weapon itself was fairly difficult to acquire, as it was one of the Generation 2 pearlescents and would only drop from tubbies. If you ask me, this was always a shame, as the Wanderlust was actually a pretty cool pistol that had a good concept, but was ultimately, I guess, nerfed by the developers. Thankfully, the community patch team looked into this one. Not only has the community patch team improved the damage, fire rate, and also added additional projectiles for better damage output, but they also increased the weapon's status effect chance, which makes it perfect for inflicting status effects. And given how damage over time effects are improved in Ultimate Voltiger mode, I would say this makes the Wanderlust a lot more viable. It also doesn't hurt that the Wanderlust, along with the Becca, Godfinger, and Carnage, are now part of the Pearlescent World Drop pool, which makes them much easier to acquire than they were before. So I would say, all in all, it's great to see the improvements made here, both from a viability and rarity perspective. And finally, number 1, the Landscaper. So I've got to admit that this one in particular really surprised me. Obviously, if you've played the non-modded version of Borderlands 2, then you'll know that the Landscaper is one of the worst weapons in the game. After all, it has projectiles that fire away from the crosshairs, the damage is poor, and while it is a Torg weapon, you can't improve the weapon's damage via grenade damage bonus. Thanks to the community patch team, though, the Landscaper is easily one of the most improved weapons as of community patch 4.1. Not only have the community patch team improved the Landscaper's firing pattern to be more in line with other shotguns, but they've also improved the blast radius, they've removed the self-damage, and they've also allowed it to deal grenade damage bonus as well, making it perfect for characters like Axton, who can enhance the damage of certain weapons via grenade damage bonus. Overall, I'd say this is one of the more substantial improvements to any weapon made by the community patch team, because this thing literally went from being terrible to actually pretty amazing. So if you're playing on community patch 4.1, you should really try the Landscaper, as it's pretty awesome. Alright guys, I think that's going to wrap up this particular video. If you like this video, feel free to leave a like, click the bell so you can be notified when I upload more videos, and as always, thank you all so much for supporting this channel, take care, and I'll see you all in the next one.